Hello and welcome to Top Story. Today we ask, is France's deepening rapprochement with the United States making it a growing target in Afghanistan? The death of a French soldier last Friday in a suicide car bomb attack on a military convoy in Kabul has raised concerns that the Taliban are now paying closer attention to the French presence in Afghanistan. 2 more French Special Forces soldiers were killed in action at the end of last month. Whatever the case, though, France under President Nicolas Sarkozy seems increasingly committed to the NATO-led International Security Assistance Force. Indeed, he told France's annual conference of ambassadors in August that he wanted to strengthen France's efforts to train the Afghan armed forces. As things stand, France has 1,100 troops in the country. Of those, 1,000 form part of the defence of Kabul, while 100 are committed to training. Another 150 soldiers are expected to be on the way soon. Well, joining me now to discuss the role of France in Afghanistan and its implications for the security of its troops, I'm joined by Dominique Lagarde of the French weekly L'Express, who's a specialist on Afghanistan. Thanks very much for being on Top Story. If I could just start by that question, is rapprochement with the United States, do you think, making France more of a target?
It's making France more of a target, definitely, but not necessarily in Afghanistan. I would tend to say France is now more of a target for terrorists, generally speaking. Now, in Afghanistan, the Taliban are targeting NATO forces, and I'm not sure this last attack really was aimed at the French soldiers particularly. It was they were targeting NATO, I think.
But the profile of the French presence seems to be getting stronger in Afghanistan.
It is getting a bit stronger. Well, as you know, the French president has decided to send about, half a dozen combat planes in Kandahar. These planes were not based in Afghanistan so far. They were based in Tajikistan.
Just to the north of Afghanistan.
Just in the north, and now they will be based in Kandahar. They will be closer to the combat areas, which are the Kandahar province and the Helmand province. So that's basically, this was a political gesture. It was Sarkozy wanted to send a message to the Americans that he's a good ally, he's a close ally, and he wants to help and he wants to do more.
But when you send a message to the Americans that you're a good ally, you're also sending a message to the Taliban that you're a resolute enemy, I suppose.
Of course you are. Now the French troops are not based in the south so far. They are based around Kabul, and they are not willing to go to the south. They are not willing, for example, to replace the British or the the soldiers from Netherlands or Canada. What is meant by the French authorities when they say they want to train more Afghan troops is that they are ready to take their part of what is now the NATO policy. What NATO is realizing is that in Afghanistan, they can't lose this war because of their superiority. Okay, the Taliban are not going to hold Kandahar again or Kabul, but at the same time they cannot win this war because they don't have the number. Because every time when they take a position, then they leave, and then they leave the Afghan army, and the Taliban come back. And so, therefore, they have decided that they want to put the stress on training. They want to have more teams, what they call embedded monitoring teams, with the Afghan troops to train them. And the French are ready to take part in this. They have announced that they would send about 150 more soldiers there, instructors, to train these troops. So definitely this is, the French president wants to take all his part in this war, but at the same time it does not mean that the French will go to the south, and it means that they are going to do it inside NATO basically, and following the NATO policy.
So the idea is to make the Afghans themselves more capable of resisting the Taliban.
That's what NATO would like. What they want to do is to train the Afghan army, because their idea is that the Taliban are not going to leave, in the near future. You have to cope with this, and that obviously NATO forces cannot control the whole of the country.
Well, I imagine then that President Sarkozy will be quite happy with a meeting of the UN yesterday in New York, high-level meeting, about 18 countries, including the French Foreign Minister Bernard Kouchner, which it was said that the emphasis should now be on better governance in Afghanistan, improving governance, cracking down on corruption, cracking down on drug trafficking, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
that's more what France wants, isn't it?
That's something else, because what happened is you can't solve everything with troops, with NATO troops. There's also a problem of governance, as you said, corruption, and Afghanistan is the first, well, it produces about 90% of the world's opium. And then the international community needs to be stronger, and above all, they need to cooperate in a better way, be more efficient. There are discussions right now in the UN on whether you should have a top personality being in charge of Afghanistan, either based in Kabul or in New York, at the UN, and France is part of these discussions.
But good governance is also about training, isn't it? Is France doing much to help in improving the standards inside the Afghan government?
Not on a bilateral basis. Basically, most of the money France is given to Afghanistan for development goes through the EU. Most of it goes through the EU, in fact. But the EU is giving about 2/3 of the total development aid given to Afghanistan.
Because does Afghanistan, as things stand, have the personnel to put through the sort of government reforms that the EU and others are demanding of it?
Not really, but I think that the EU and the Americans would also maybe put more pressure on President Karzai. Because, for example, the police is completely corrupted, and that's one of the reasons why people feel so insecure, especially in the south, is that they would rather have the Taliban because the police are so corrupted. And if the police is corrupted, it's not just at the basis. I mean, it goes up to the top. The Minister of Interior himself is a corrupted man, and everyone knows that. And so you have to, at one point, you have to tell President Karzai that he has to do something with that. That's one example.
Well, one of the big issues, of course, is drug trafficking. And at the heart of drug trafficking is the role of opium in Afghanistan. But it's a very difficult issue to deal with,
It's a very difficult issue because, like a lot of farmers live through the poppy fields and opium, and so if you want to win the hearts and the minds, as the British used to say, you can't really eradicate these opium fields unless you have an alternative, and it's very difficult to have alternatives. So that's a difficult point.
Okay, I'm afraid that's all we have time for today. Thanks very much to Dominique Lagarde of France's Express magazine. Join us again for another edition of Top Story tomorrow. Goodbye for now.